Go live.
Yo.
Ta-dum. Scroll through, see these two jokers on your Netflix. All right, Netflix, call us. We'll do the deal. We'll start your live content.
Oh, man. Could you imagine that?
I think they should do it. They should do it. Because basically Amazon kind of has it a little bit with their Stack TV and other apps that you can tune into live TV. Maybe Netflix, maybe they already do it and we just never click it. Because I think they added games at some point and I never clicked that.
Yeah, I've seen some other games. They just loaded up that it's coming, or they've loaded up that Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I haven't played it on it.
On Netflix?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm curious of the interface, how it works. I guess if your Netflix is connected to your PlayStation, like mine is, that's why you see me on 24/7. Then yeah, that's how it is. What do you think? You think Netflix is going to walk back this password sharing thing?
Yeah, it's getting a lot of negative reaction. You know what? Here's the problem: is that there are some extenuating circumstances that they need to be able to address. For instance, there was a story in the news last week, John, about a guy who has been in the hospital for something like 5 months. He's on I think it's a lung transplant list or a heart. Anyways, he's in the hospital for 5 months. His Netflix no longer works because he's not using that device to sign into his home account. His wife and kids are at home. They're watching Netflix. He's like, he's messaged them and they're like, yeah, nothing we can do about that. Sorry. But he's like, but I haven't gone. I'm stuck at the hospital. Like, this is the only entertainment I have. And they're like,
wow. I wonder who had to dig up that story. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, let's find the worst possible legit scenario that this Netflix no password sharing thing or home base thing. I guess he could set the hospital to his home base.
Well, no, because his wife and kids because the billing goes to their house. It's in BC, right? So
so you're gonna have to pay that extra $8 or whatever it is. But yeah, I question it. Someone made another good point. It's like, if you have 6 people sharing your Netflix account and all 6 of those people watch Stranger Things, that's like 6 extra streams for Stranger Things, right?
Right.
And then you're cutting it down, and I don't know what the math was for how many people do this with their accounts. How many streams does a major show like that go down now that they've kiboshed this? So we'll see what happens with Netflix. But anyways, that's our Netflix deep dive. That's as deep as we're going to go, I think, right, Rob? Welcome to the Sidekick Show. It is Holiday Monday for you fellow Ontarians. Is it only Ontarians that got it?
A number of provinces are off today. And actually, it's President's Day in the U.S. So we may or may not see Scott and Michelle and any of our other U.S. friends might be popping in today. Or they might not. I don't know.
Yeah. Everyone might be busy doing family stuff. So we're here to chill with you if you're free. Like Lewis, what's up, Lewis, in the chat? I see you're mentioning that the Netflix is an app that you have to download to play the games. And what's up, Steve? I see you in there too. This Netflix thing is weird, but yeah, we're going to move on from there. So welcome to the Psychic Show. If you're watching this on the replay, join us for the live stream so we can interact with you. We want to go back and forth. We want to hear your thoughts of what we're talking about and check in with what you're up to. So please join us every Monday, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, Twitch. I think I'm streaming this to Twitter today and Facebook.
Wow.
So we're trying some new things out, folks. So let us know what you like. But the YouTube is the main go-to because that's where most of the people in the chat are. So thank you, everybody, for joining us in the chat. Rob, how are you doing? Good, sir. Rob, to my left here. Is it my left on the screen?
No. Well, I don't know.
No, I don't know. To this side of the screen, my good buddy Rob, who I've seen for the second time in 2023, right? I saw you on the weekend.
Yeah, that was crazy. First of all, man, it was so good seeing you in person. Like, we've been doing this for like a couple of years.
Yeah.
And so we see each other once, twice a week.
Yeah.
And we're chatting out throughout the week. But then to actually see you in person, it was great. It was good to see you.
It's weird. I'll admit that it's a little weird for me to have interactions with people in real life right now. You know what I mean? You're kind of like,
yeah, I know. I came in and you were like,
yeah, no, it's weird because when you go to see people, I went to a funeral the other day. I'm like, do you still shake hands? Do you like hug in this situation anymore? It's getting kind of scary, right? So it's taken me a second to get used to it again, Rob. I used to see Rob every day of the week, not every day of the week, once a week, when he used to work in the area. So we went through a whole change. So Lewis says Rob is to my right.
Yeah. All right. John has issues with his lefts and rights. But let me just say, man, it was so good to seeing you. First of all, I picked up 3 things from you.
3.
I'm okay, dude. My omnibus game is out of control. But I picked up the Spectacular Spider-Man.
With the tarantula on the cover.
Yeah, which is I had this, or I had it. This comic. I remember reading this. Like I remember this. Like, reading it while I was camping.
You mentioned that this is they started putting these issue covers right on the cover, right? So that's like a reproduction of the issue you probably read back in the day.
And I love how like these omnis, like they do this whole thing where they show like all the covers, all the classic covers. So you can, even if you're not familiar with the stories, whatever, you look, oh man, I remember that. And then I picked up another one from my childhood, John. And how could I not, right? Secret Wars. Yeah, Secret Wars Omni. I mean, holy crap. I mean, I remember this. I was the Beyonder. I lived this. I love this. I even had Secret Wars 2. Like I was just
the unloved Secret Wars.
That's right. I absolutely adored this. So I was so happy that you had them in stock and I was able to pick them up. But more importantly, John, is I got that cool sideshow Green Lantern statue that is over my right shoulder, but it's probably on my left. But yes, I've used a green light to light him up.
Yeah. Fresh off your Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern rewatch.
That's right.
The Green Lantern statue that looks a little bit like him. It's got like a similar hairstyle, I think.
Yeah. So I absolutely love it, man. I adore it. I brought it home, brought the box home. My wife is like, "What the hell is that?" And I was like,
"Rob, tell me,
blame John." So all this to say is that, listen, if you haven't had an opportunity to check out Heroes World up in Markham, please go ahead and do so. I could have spent a lot more money on some of the omnis that they had, but I had to keep myself in a budget. But honestly, your omni section is just phenomenal. So definitely,
got a lot of fun stuff. Got some mangas added to the mix too, Berserk and a lot of other fun stuff. So. And definitely, folks, if you have recommendations, Rob always lets me know what the good stuff is coming up. If you see something you want to see in store, let me know so I can know to carry those things to be able to fill those needs and niches. Right, a lot of fun books, and there's too many good books and so little time. So we got to figure out how to get it going.
So thank you very much, good sir.
No, thank you, Rob.
Seeing you, it was awesome coming back with these items as well. So much to my wife's chagrin. She goes, you should start selling some of those books. I was like, what? And she goes, well, because like you just read them, you could sell them. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? That's not how it works.
I'm gonna go back and read them.
Right. So yeah. At any rate, how was your weekend?
Yeah. So everybody in the chat, let us know how was your weekend. What'd you get up to? Maybe you're still enjoying your long weekend. If you're not, I'm sorry that you had to work on Monday. So that sucks. So yeah, Rob, I had a pretty busy weekend. I went to a toy show yesterday. Yeah. We do the big toy collectors con in Mississauga. They usually have a show once every couple months or so. So it was the first one of this year, and it was a ton of fun. Like a lot of people came out, so it looks like things are going back full swing. They had the early bird. It usually starts at 10 o'clock in the morning, goes right up until 4 o'clock. So it's a relatively short show. So not like a multiple day show where we had to pack up an entire truck worth of stuff. It's me and my team. We only need to bring like a minivan and maybe another SUV. And it's always fun. And especially when you're selling stuff, you end up spending a lot of that money on other stuff you see there. So it's really cool. The TVX lightsaber guys were there. I saw tons of people walking out with custom lightsabers. I'm going to have to hit those guys up and see if they do wholesale to local businesses. That'd be pretty sweet. Darth Vader was there. They had a guy dressed as Darth Vader walking around showing off the lightsabers. No celebrity guests this time. Sometimes they'll have wrestlers and all that kind of stuff doing autographs, but it's a lot of fun. Like, is there any toys from your past, Rob, that you would love to like kind of like own in your collection or just like to see again?
Grandizer.
Yeah, you mentioned you want the Mazinger Grandizer stuff. I always get a lot of people in the shop come in and look for that stuff because it is semi-rare. It never got like a reboot over here. You won't see it at Toys R Us. No. There's a couple companies who do produce stuff for it, but it's few and far between. So Rob's not alone in the one that wants that.
I used to love that in the flying saucer, and then the arms were behind, and all of a sudden boom, went forward. He shot out, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, the UFO thing I never really got, but the big giant robot I 100% get. I actually didn't see any. Otherwise, I would have definitely sent you a picture. But I saw a lot of other fun stuff. Captain Power, a lot of Mask stuff, a lot of old Brave Star seems to be kind of showing up a lot. I see a lot of Brave Star stuff in box still. I don't know where these are coming up from, but all of a sudden they just started popping up. So it's really cool.
That's cool.
But other than the show, Rob, the only other thing I really got to catch up on is I caught up on Last of Us. I'm up to episode 5. So I didn't watch yesterday's one.
Okay.
Which is 6.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to hear if you've caught up on it.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other thing I wrapped because the season 2 is starting. I don't know if you watched this, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot called Bel-Air. I never got to watch the last couple episodes before, so I decided to wrap them up because the new season is starting. And for some reason, Rob, I don't know why, I've got a soft spot for that show. I just like that they're taking these characters into a completely different, more modern story line. So I'm enjoying that. But Rob, maybe you got up to a bit more. Family day, long weekend. How was your weekend? I see some people built Legos in the comments. So what did you build out of Lego, Lewis?
Put some photos up. He had a lot of Lego building this weekend. Let me see. What did I do? Still going through my McFarlane, David Michelini, Amazing Spider-Man Omni.
Classic.
Sometimes, it is very classic, first Venom and all that stuff. But sometimes, you could just tell such a difference in 30 years of writing. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of thought balloons that go, Peter's always talking to himself in his head, right?
It has been almost completely phased out in today's generation of comics. You don't hear a lot of characters' thought balloons.
No, if anything, they're in the boxes, right? And it's very minimal in the boxes. Some narration, but not thought balloons. So admittedly, sometimes these older stuff, as much as you enjoy them, they can be a bit of a struggle if you're very much accustomed to more of the modern style of writing. But still enjoying it. I watched a couple of movies, John. I watched I Am Legend.
Oh,
you know what? I'm going to throw this back on. It's been a really long time since I've seen it.
Yeah? How is it?
Listen, man, here's the problem. When you have CGI monsters, eventually, or bad guys, but eventually it will look dated, right? The story itself may not be dated because, he's a man alone and, dealing with all this stuff, but all the antagonists are all CGI and it really takes you out of the movie. And it was
especially we got Last of Us right now going on, right? Which is, I feel very similar in theme and style, and Last of Us just kills it. And this is a TV show. That's crazy.
Right. And it was so funny because I watched it. And then all of a sudden, 3 days later, we got news that they're making a sequel.
Yeah, I thought maybe you watched it because you heard the
No, it was just happenstance, right? But they're using the alternate ending so that Will Smith can come back. And I'm like, what are you going to do? People don't know that unless you're a geek and you knew there was an alternate ending on your DVD. People aren't going to the majority of people aren't going to remember. Anyway, whatever. And then I watched The Watchmen, the Zack Snyder movie.
Oh, okay.
You know what, man? That, first of all, that movie totally holds up. Say what you will about Zack Snyder or whatever, but I really, really enjoyed it. And I feel I don't know if it's listen, if you read The Watchmen now, you might find some interesting parallels into the modern day world of what we're dealing with. But watching the movie in today's scope of things, also juxtaposed to the influx of superhero movies that we have right now, it's really interesting to watch it. I really, really enjoyed The Watchmen, the movie, watching it again. So
and you're a big fan of the show, right? Would you say they pair together well, or they're just completely different?
No, completely different. But I do have the show teed up again. I had downloaded it from when I was on vacation. I never got around to watching it, but I will get back to watching it again because I loved that series.
So similar DNA, but not completely
It's it takes time. It's 40 or 30 years later or whatever it is, right? So So anyways, if you haven't checked out The Watchmen in a really long time, I would highly suggest you do it. I think people will really enjoy it. Now, if maybe they were kind of on the fence back then, I think they'll really enjoy it now. It just looks fabulous. Yeah.
What about Sucker Punch? Do you remember Sucker Punch? Every time we talk about Snyder, someone brings up Sucker Punch and goes, "It's it's actually my guilty pleasure. I never watched it, so maybe we'll have to put it on one day. But you say you're never going to watch it again.
No.
No.
I also watched 1917. I was ever
yes.
since that All Quiet on the Western Front. I was like, oh, it's on Netflix. I gave it a shot, and just today I'm halfway through a movie called the Phantom of the Open, and it's a true story. It's a British movie about this guy back in like the 70s who decided to play in the British Open because it was the British Open. He never played golf before, but he's like, it should be open for everybody. So, and he had recorded the worst score in golf history at the time. Like, it was like 129. So, anyways, it's a pretty funny little comedy. So I'm halfway through that. So that was,
I wonder how much such an endeavor would cost you if you could just, Happy Gilmore it or something like that.
Yeah. So definitely something worth watching. So yeah, that was my weekend, man.
Yeah. All right. So Rob got up to a lot. What about Last of Us? Let's check in with Last of Us since we're probably going to have to cover it when it wraps. But episode 6, did you watch it last night?
I did. Yeah. Watched it last night. Yeah, it's really good. There's a lot online of people, and I think even the showrunners have said that they adapted the first game for season 1. Mm-hmm. But I would really hope. I mean, that I feel like the first game there's so much in it. It could give you almost 2 full seasons. And I'm just like, don't rush through it, man. Like, I'm just enjoying this thing so much. But it was a really, really good episode. I can't find fault in anything that they're doing. Like, it's just, and it's gorgeous to look at.
It's maintaining its hype and kind of praise level right now.
And listen, like, I think episode 3, that bottle episode, was very special and stuff like that. And I don't think subsequent issues haven't maintained that level, but they weren't supposed to. And that's what I think makes, and it's not like it's taken a nosedive. It's just, they're all really, really good, but episode 3 is just, it's standalone. And so these other episodes are just fantastic, but then they're all brought up by how great episode 3 was as well. Right. So just absolutely loving it, man. I'm so happy with this show.
Yeah. Episode 3 is a good example of a really good, like in the comic world, a really good one shot.
Yes.
In the world that they could, since they're taking everything from comic books and stuff like that, if they're going to adapt something from something like The Last of Us or whatever, and they just do these pocket episodes all over the place of different characters in this world, it could work. I think it could work if the storytelling is that strong. So yeah, I think we're gonna check back in with Last of Us. If you guys are watching Last of Us, let us know what you thought of it. But we got 3 more episodes to go, Rob.
So sad.
Yeah. What are you gonna do when there's no Last of Us to watch?
I'll rewatch it. Again.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So thank you, everybody. It looks like the only thing I saw in the chat was Lewis was building some Legos. Steve, I see Steve in the chat. If you got up to anything on the weekend, let me know. You still playing that Street Fighter beta? I'm really jealous about that. But let's jump on to our next thing, which is I talk a little bit about what's going on in the shop. We do have a Cardfight Vanguard shop challenge coming up this week. So if you are a card player, we got lots of card events going on, and then the new Magic set. We're waiting for the new all will be one complete bundle. A lot of people have been asking me about it. Hopefully, very soon I'll know exactly how many I'm getting. So check in with that. And we usually get our new comics every Wednesday. So if you're looking for new comics and lots of toys, I brought back a bunch of fun toys. If you like to buy used kind of out of box stuff for a little bit cheaper, I just filled the showcase with a bunch of new stuff that we got at the show. So come by and check that out. And I got a whole bunch of other little fun things. I got it's called I should have brought it with me. It's called a casket of casualty or something like that. It's a bunch of little effects, like blood effects and like like eyeballs, and the one that looks like a person vomiting blood. It's really funny stuff that you can do with your action figures, because Instagram photography is a thing now with these action figures. So check out my feed on Instagram if you want to check that out. jho.heroesworld at Instagram, whatever, if you want to see that kind of stuff. But Rob, did we have any news that we want to talk about before we get to our movie Days of Thunder?
Yeah, we do. So the aforementioned, what do you call that? I Am Legend sequel is going forward with Will Smith and Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
Whatever, man. I mean,
the Will Smith train is moving again. I saw Bad Boys 4 is filming now, I think.
Yeah, so they start filming pretty soon. I think Bad Boys 4 is back up there. Speaking of 4, we got a trailer for John Wick 4. Did you get a chance to see it?
No, I didn't watch it because I know I'm going to see this movie.
Okay.
So I'm trying to avoid it, but I feel like I'm not going to be able to avoid it. I watched a featurette of some of the car stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
It looks like they're trying to really get John Wick driving around again, and the cars that they are showing off. I'm pretty excited, Rob. So how was the trailer? Should I go watch this, or
No,
do you
I
think
think
I
you're
could?
fine to save to wait. They're not reinventing the wheel on anything, right? So I think you're good to wait. The one trailer that really got me excited this week, though, John,
Yeah.
was Tetris. Did you see the Tetris trailer?
No, like, is it like? Is it going to be animated people as blocks of Tetris? Like I'm the line, I'm the square?
No.
Or is it like the guy who created Tetris? Or is it going to be?
It's like the human centipede version of Tetris. No. It's a story. It's going to be dropping on Apple TV Plus. A story about the guy at Nintendo who saw the Tetris game and then flies to Russia to try to get the rights. And back in the 80s, obviously, shit wasn't good between the US and Russia. Not that it's any better right now, but there was a period of niceness. But trying to get the rights, and then you even see like he's talking to like the head of Nintendo, about it. Like it looks like a really cool story about how and almost so that the guy who created Tetris was somewhat screwed out of royalties and whatnot. And they like, there's a scene in the trailer where they bring this guy, it's Taron Egerton plays the main role. And like, come in, you're only the fourth person to see this. And it was a mock-up of the Game Boy. Like that. And he's looking at it, you see all these wires sticking out of it, and then it's into research and development, and he's like, put Tetris on that. Ship it out with Tetris. Like it was like, it looks really cool, man. I'm super stoked to see that. That comes out in I think it's March or April. So
do you remember the first time you played Tetris, Rob?
I don't remember the very specific first time, but I remember just being absolutely addicted to it.
Yeah. I remember, I think my cousins got it on, they had the Japanese Nintendo. And do you remember you used to be able to pick your music? So they had like the traditional like the Tetris, and then they had like this alternate other one. You never picked the other one. You picked the most
the classic one.
Yeah, and we would just be playing each other. It was like one of the first kind of like split screen games where you just like compete against each other. But yeah, it was pretty mind blowing at the time.
Yeah, no, it was really, really cool. Also really, really cool, John, is Shazam.
Do you say that with sarcasm, or are you actually saying like you're really?
No, Shazam,
really...
Fear of the Gods. Tickets are on sale for its March 17th. I feel so bad for these guys. I feel like they're getting the shaft. The movie doesn't look that bad. That's the thing.
Did you buy your tickets? Anyone in the chat who's going to see Shazam, let us know.
Yeah, did. It's the Friday of March break, so I'm taking my son with me. More important though, John, and more sad is that Deadline reported that the Marvels movie is moving from its July date to November, which is, let me see if I have the exact date. I think it's November the 10th. Shifting their strategies. It was kind of coinciding with another article that Marvel is essentially pulling the throttle back on their output, and are looking to release maybe 2 movies and 2 TV shows per year going forward. But that would also then is supposed to try to help offset some Star Wars development, that they're going to try to maybe not do as many shows as well, but there will be some announcements forthcoming about some new Star Wars movies, and we may get that in April. So apparently they want to spend a bit more money on the Star Wars stuff and not so much on the Marvel, but to try to kind of match their output, because I think with Bob Iger returning to Disney, it was, kind of thought of, you guys have been blowing the budgets on these things, and where's the return on this? Like, it's supposed to be quality over quantity, and these are things that, John, you and I have talked about numerous times on this show.
Yeah.
There's too much. So we'll see what happens, and maybe I don't believe that this shift of the Marvels has anything to do with it not being done. I think it's to give space, because we just had Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yep.
In May, you've got Guardians 3, and then July was going to be the Marvels, and then nothing for the rest of the year. So I think they're spacing it out. We know Loki season 2 will probably drop in the summer. So I think it's wise that they're pushing it back. Obviously, I like my shit now. I want it now. So I was very excited to see it, but I'm okay with a November release. One tidbit that did come out of that, though, is that Kevin Feige did say that Ms. Marvel as played by friend of the store, Iman Vellani. Apparently, she steals the show in the Marvels. Her character of Kamala
I
Khan.
can't wait. I
Yeah.
can't wait. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So that's November. If you're a fan of Jeff Lemire's Essex County, March 19th down on CBC as his adaptation of Essex County drops on CBC and CBC Gem. And I guess the last story, John, is a really puzzling one to me, and I'm not really sure why, but we got word today that they're making another Hellboy movie, and they're rebooting it yet again.
I feel like there should be a limit to the amount of flops that you can have in a row. Like,
it's called Hellboy: The Crooked Man.
okay, yeah, you know what? I don't know. Del Toro does such a good job with some of his animations and stuff. I don't understand why these are not hitting. Like, I feel like Pinocchio was not as well received in the. I don't know if it went straight to streaming or it was box office. But did you even watch that last reboot, Rob? I don't think any of us watched it. You watched it?
Yeah, with David Harbour. I did watch it. Okay. I've said this before. For some reason, those Hellboy movies are like kryptonite to me. I put them on, and then I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, oh, stay out. And I pass out each and every time. I don't know what it is. I saw the newer one with David Harbour, and it was starting to, I could feel my eye twitching. I was like, no, it's a Hellboy curse. I'm starting to fall asleep. It wasn't that great, man.
I remember the second one had like some really cool stuff going on, but for some reason it just does not get maybe the respect that a creator like Del Toro should get, right?
So here's the thing. So this new movie is supposed to be like a period piece. And it's directed by a guy named Brian Taylor. Do you know what Brian Taylor directed, John?
It better be something. There's something on the list, right? You don't give
Crank.
What?
Crank.
Crank? Oh. Is it just one guy? I thought it was multiple guys who did Crank, and then
no.
And then they just started shooting stuff with GoPros and all. Crank was actually pretty good for what they were given.
Sure,
and then
their point of view.
Yeah, or maybe it was the second one. Maybe the second one was multiple directors working together or something like that. But yeah.
At any rate, so apparently this will be the first time that Hellboy creator Mike Mignola will have penned the script alongside Dark Horse Comics collaborator Chris.
That's
Cole.
A plus. Yeah, that's a huge plus.
So apparently, it's his script. Hellboy: The Crooked Man. I don't even know when this will be dropping, but the comic book I think it's based on takes place in the 18th century. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, and it's like it's weird because it starts like filming really soon, like in the next couple of weeks. So I guess we're getting an announcement of who the hell Hellboy is.
Yeah, I guess Mike Mignola. Definitely, if his name's attached, we're going to see maybe a level up in story wise, because I've sold many a Hellboy comic book, and the ones that sell the most all have his name on it. They've tried to kind of deviate and use the same characters and have other people write it, but it's only when he's working on the series and doing some of the artwork on it where it actually hits. So I don't know. I guess, is this third time's the charm? Is that what they call them? Yeah.
That's what they say, but we shall see. I don't know, man.
Oh, my goodness.
That's it, man. That's it for the news.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. Lewis does shout out Picard season 3 did begin, which I actually heard a lot of people said it was pretty good. It was what they probably should have done for second season is what I was hearing about that. Any urge to tune into Picard, Rob? Maybe when it wraps?
Maybe when it wraps. Maybe I'll go back on it. I saw season 1 and I was kind of bored with it.
Yeah.
I heard season 2 was so, but I don't know. We'll see. You know what? You know what it is? I guess I really enjoyed, Next Gen, and I enjoyed those movies for the most part. And I just, I know that they're all back, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Does it sully what we have? I don't know. We'll see. So
a lot of people I talked to in the shop said this new third season is what they should have done. Or what they should have been rolling with. And 2 was, I don't know if it was a cash grab or a phone in or whatever you want to call it. But yeah. You can't just skip. You can.
Oh no,
skip.
he corrected himself.
You can.
You can.
Yeah. He said you can skip season 1 and 2. Wow, that's crazy. So see you later, Picard season 1 and 2. Star Trek expert has said you do not need to watch those. So that's breaking news for you there. All right. So thank you everybody for joining us for the news. If you had anything else pop up, let us know in the comments, and we'll try to address it later. But let's keep it rolling because it is a holiday. So thank you for giving us your holiday time, folks. And we'll talk a little bit. You want to dive right into Days of Thunder?
Well, before we do that, though, I want to say to
cool.
everybody, please, if you haven't had an opportunity to subscribe to the channel, please do so. Hit your notification bells. Like this video. It's definitely going to help the algorithms. But you want to have that notification bell set because the Heroes World podcast will be back with a review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. You will have it in your feed in the next couple of days. Yeah. If you've seen the movie...
That's how Ant-Man whips on his helmet. That's inside joke.
If you've seen the movie, you're definitely going to want to tune in for our completely spoiler-filled review, but that will be coming in a few days. John, myself, and Stu have all gone and watched it. So we're not going to, Steve saying, heard bad things about Quantumania. We're not going to talk about bad or good right now, Steve. You're just going to have to wait until our review, which will probably be out Wednesday or so.
Yeah.
Maybe
and then I'm sure how soon do you think before this hits digital, Rob? Ant-Man, 45 days?
We are February. I'm gonna say, let's call it April something, whatever the April Friday in April is, 15th or something. I don't know.
Yeah, which is right around the corner. Black Panther felt like it came out pretty quick, and I think they got a little bit of a stretch in there.
They did. I think it was still rolling with some cash, so it was able to wait. I'm gonna so let's call it April 21st. Earth Day is the 22nd. Maybe they'll Disney.
Happy Earth Day. Here's it, man. Completely unrelated tie-in.
Or you know what? April 20th, John, is generally the 420, and it's pretty trippy, this movie. So they might just release it on that day.
I think if you took some enhancers or whatever you want to call it before watching this movie, you are going to have a blast.
Right. It's presented by Cheech and Chong and the Wasp: Quantumania.
All right. Thank you, Rob. Good plug. Totally forgot about that. But yeah, let's go in. Days of Thunder, Rob. Are we going to talk about how rubbing is racing? No, rubbing's not racing. I'm pretty sure you learned from this. The lesson you learned from this movie is rubbing is racing, right?
That's right. Yeah. Also, to also be upset if cops don't frisk me down.
Essentially. All right, we're talking about Days of Thunder, folks. If you haven't seen it for a while, that's fine. We're gonna give you a quick recap and just talk about it. If we should see more of this, we should see it come back. I don't know if it's in your rundown, Rob. There was some crazy stuff going on during the production of this movie.
Yeah, I got a little bit of it. And so if people are saying, why are you watching Days of Thunder? Well, it was twofold. One is that, one of the biggest movies of last year, aside from Avatar, was Top Gun, Maverick. And this one was kind of the next step in Tom Cruise's action movie repertoire. Also, it was directed by Tony Scott, who directed last week's showcase movie of True Romance. We figured, hey, what the hell, man? Let's just pair this stuff together. Days of Thunder, 90s action movie. So I've got a rundown for you, John, and for those who are listening, hopefully you had a chance to rewatch it. But if not, here we go. Days of Thunder was released June 27th, 1990, reteaming Tom Cruise and Top Gun director Tony Scott in a movie that was described as Top Gun in cars. With a budget of $60 million, the movie brought in about $158 million worldwide, produced by mega producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer. And if we have to explain to you who those guys are, you are definitely not a fan of 80s and 90s action. The movie stars Cruise, Robert Duvall, former ex-Mrs. Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Randy Quaid, and future Yondu himself, Michael Rooker. The movie was plagued with delays and issues, John, stemming from Bruckheimer and Simpson's arguments with Scott. Sometimes they had arguments with screenwriter Robert Towne. The delays were so long on this, John, due to these arguments. A number of crew sat around and accumulated so much overtime, they were able to pay for a 4-month-long vacation following production, just based on the OT. There was also a lot of reports of a very... I mean, it just reeks of 1989, 1990 of late Don Simpson having a bunch of parties with Donna Versace clothes to hand out to women and inviting them to hotels and parties. It was just some weird shit apparently was happening.
There's some rumors that one of the girls who's a pit crew member was his girlfriend at the time, and she's got like one line, and people are like, "Oh, she's on set every day."
Yeah.
You're like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah, just bizarre. The movie had received mixed reviews upon its release from critics, aimed at its quote unrealistic special effects, character, screenplay, acting, dialogue, and similarities to Top Gun. The movie, ratings-wise, hasn't fared any better over time. According to Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 38% critic score and a mind-numbing, John, 60% audience score.
Okay.
Okay. And in case you're wondering, kids, yes, in 1990, there was a video game to match the movie, and Days of Thunder hit your NES, PC, and your Amiga. Remember that, John? The Amiga? A Game Boy version was released 2 years later, and apparently you may have been able to download a copy of this on your iOS or Google device up to a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if it's still there. I could have checked, but I didn't. So, John,
may or may not be there. That's a mystery for you guys.
Did racing cars here give you the need for speed, or was it days of boredom?
Days of boredom. I knew you were gonna bring that one up. There's a crazy article up there. I think it's called like Days of Plunder or something that talks about the whole like Don Simpson going crazy with like, I guess he wanted to be a movie star at the time or whatever. But that type of stuff doesn't surprise me. I think you mentioned the guy who was writing the script. I think he was like writing stuff on the fly on the set.
Yeah.
Which you can 100% see. So this movie has so many problems. I wish it was just Top Gun with cars. They should have. They take a lot from Top Gun formula, but not quite enough. They should have just literally just copied the exact same stuff over. Like they basically have a character that's exactly like Iceman that shows up later and all that. It's really funny. It's really funny. Yeah, it's like, yeah. You guys should have just went all in and just did this again. But when you look at like your list of ingredients, basically this director, this producer, these guys, these stars, and everything, you're like, this should be a smash. And it's basically just all right, Rob. Right? Man. I think it excels. Just my overall thoughts. I think it really excels when they're on the track. I guess Tom Cruise. I think the story is he took a lap around in a NASCAR car or something like that, and he's like, "We got to do a movie." And I don't know how much of the cars that he's driving in it, but I assume almost all of it. But the car scenes I think are really strong, and everything else is really weak. So much so that I don't think I would ever choose this over Top Gun. So if you guys feel differently in the comments, let us know. But Rob, what are your overall thoughts of Days of Thunder or Days of Sleepy Time, whatever you want to call it?
So I remember going to the theater to see this.
Like, wow. I was late to the party. I think for some reason I didn't hear any hype about it.
I remember
watched it much later on
I remember it. I remember the poster. I remember the commercials. Like there was significant. I remember watching the Entertainment Tonight, specials about it. The stories leading up to it. Like every day, fucking Mary Hart would always tell us about, Tom Cruise back in Days of Thunder, and John Tesh would tee up some special 5-minute little vignette about it, and I was like, "Oh my god, Days of Thunder!" And the poster.
They spent a lot, on the marketing for this movie was out of control.
And so I remember seeing it, and so when we said, "Hey, we're gonna rewatch this movie," I think I might have seen it later in my teen years, but it's got to be like 30 plus years since I've seen this thing, John, or 30 years or whatever, right? And I was kind of excited. I said to my son, "You got to watch this movie with me. This is gonna be a lot of fun," because my memory of this movie is like really intense, and this movie is not intense at all. It does not hold. Honestly, the first shot of Tom Cruise, they're all at the racetrack, right?
Yeah.
And Randy Quaid is trying to convince Duvall to let this kid, drive a car. I want you to meet him and this and that. And all of a sudden in the distance, you hear, and all the characters, they all turn to look, and through the smoke that was, I don't know where it came from. All of a sudden, Tom
Big smoke machine. That's a Tony Scott staple, though.
Comes out of the smoke on his motorcycle, and it was like as if Maverick had just gotten off the helicarrier, jumped on a bike, and drove to the.
This is my part-time job, guys.
I was like, "What is happening?" And then it was just the movie felt, no pun intended, rushed. Like it was, but not rushed in like a high octave, like or octane. I want to go, 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 go. It just felt like we just got to get you to this part of the story. So we're just going to fast forward through a lot of shit. Yeah. Like it just seemed so bizarre. I honestly, if you haven't rewatched this movie and your memory of this movie is that you really enjoyed it, just stick to the memory. You will be disappointed if you watch the movie again.
That rose-colored glasses or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
I feel like it. Yeah, that
rose-colored
like,
glasses.
Yeah, I feel like that rushed feel, or the like, we're filming this. Did we get it? I don't know if we got it. To give it to the editor to be able to try to piece it together. I feel like we see that a lot in newer movies because they're throwing so much money at it and things are so tight in their timelines with getting actors and actresses and locations and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it would have been nice if this was a lot more care taken into it. Do you think maybe there is a good movie in here somewhere, like that could have been salvaged if everyone wasn't too busy, spending money on drugs and call girls and all kinds of hookers and blow?
I guess there might have, I think racing movies are hard to do. Car chase sequences are not hard to do if done really, really well, right? Yeah. Like the Ronin is a great car chase sequence, right? But I think racing movies are hard to do because at the end of the day, you're just racing around a track.
Yeah. Especially this movie, it's an oval, and then the whole gimmick of the story is like, oh, Cruz never always passes on the outside, and then all of a sudden he passes on the inside, and that was your plot point. Yeah. That he did not do the thing that he always does.
Yeah, it was like over the top. It's like, oh, he always goes over the top, and then all of a sudden he wins by not going over the top.
Yeah. So it's kind of strange that I feel like the technology maybe wasn't there. Like Tony Scott does shoot the hell out of these cars, right?
But these NASCAR. It feel like a Tony Scott movie though. Like
I feel like only during the driving scenes it feels like
Tony Scott, maybe
when he's like kind of like getting in on the cars and when the cars are really moving. But you can't show much. You don't have a lot of aerial shots of things going on. The crashes do look spectacular. But when you compare it to new movies like Rush or Ford versus Ferrari, it gets blown out of the water by stuff like that. Even I watched a clip of that Sylvester Stallone movie Driven, and they have a couple of really good sequences in that.
Is that where he throws the quarter on the ground?
Yeah, that's the best scene ever. I told Rob we should watch that next, and he shot me down.
No, not happening. So you mentioned like Ford versus Ferrari.
Great movie.
Rush, right?
Yeah.
Like I think when you're doing stories, and maybe because those ones are kind of like, based on true stories, like, but when there's a story and the racing enhances a story or is a subplot of the story, then I think racing movies can be really cool. But unfortunately for this, there was no plot really. It's just, what was it? The guy's goal was to win Daytona, and he had friction with Michael Rooker.
Yeah,
and he felt
and then they subbed him out halfway through and brought in Princess Bride to take over the villain's spot.
Right? Yeah, and like it just was like, what is happening now? You're just throwing this at the screen. You're throwing this at the screen. Like, and even Nicole Kidman's role, like as the doctor, like it was just like, I was like, the whole thing just felt like so like absurd. Right, like absolutely absurd.
You could tell it was kind of being, I don't know if it was kind of being worked on the fly, but you could tell that they probably didn't have everything fully cooked before they dove into this. So they were either a little cocky, or they just managed to fly off the money from Top Gun, and they were the studio was just like, sure, I will sign the checks. Go ahead, go nuts.
So there is this one scene though, and I wish I had remembered specifically what was said, and I'm hoping that you will remember. But you know how I always stumble on these things, John, these continuity things or whatever. But there's one scene where Cruz is racing, and this is before the accident.
Yeah,
and he's racing around, and he's talking about something to Duvall back at, and he's on his microphone, and he's saying stuff, but his lips aren't moving. Like they did ADR over, and you see him driving like this, and he's talking, but you can hear stuff going, and his lips aren't moving, and then he like turns his head, and he's still talking, but his lips aren't moving. I was like, What? How did what? Like
And it could easily be covered too. Just don't cut the shot to the other guy when he's talking, and they cut back.
yeah, they did. They did cut to the guy like nodding, and then he says something. They went back to Cruz, and he's still not. His voice is there, but he's not physically speaking.
Yeah.
I mean, listen. This is also a production where they actually forgot to get a close-up film of Cruz crossing the finish line at the end of the movie. They didn't realize.
Is that why it's so abrupt? It's like they
won.
won.
And it's like, oh, they won, but you actually never saw the race car go across the finish line.
Oh my god!
They forgot to film that.
When sometimes you talk about movies and you're like, I guess everyone who worked on it had a lot of fun on set, but we just paid for a movie where and we paid for them to party. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oceans, everything after Ocean's 11, I think is the general consensus. Everyone's like, oh yeah, all these celebrities just wanted to hang out.
Yeah.
And I guess they filmed something while they were during their downtime. But so Rob, if this movie's, I think our new thing is, if this movie's going into the fire, do you save anything? Do you save the can that the film is in so you can reuse it for another film, or is there anything in this movie worth saving? Or do you have a favorite part?
To your point, the car crash scenes are pretty spectacular, but they don't stick out to anything that we haven't seen before, even in real car crash footage, right? Like, honestly, this is not it. This will thank God there's no Legacy sequel happening. Days of Thunder, Trickle returns, the Trickle monster,
Trickle's back.
Trickle me, Elmo. Trickle me, Yondu. I mean, nothing. It's not happening. So thank God for that. So no, there's nothing. There's nothing about this movie. I think, again, I really mean this, and I wish that I hadn't rewatched it. If it feels like it was a blast to watch back in 1990, don't ruin that memory. Just keep it, because at least
I don't think it's quite that bad. I think you can watch it in the background, definitely. I would say maybe save the car scenes, but the guys in the chat bring up a good point that there was a Canada Wonderland ride in Canada where you would basically, I don't know if it just played the racing scenes and it just moved the seats along. That would be great use of those reuse of those scenes. To think, I would save maybe that last shot where Cruz and Duvall are, and he's like, I'll race you. And then they just start racing. And then there's this big goofy grin on Cruz's face and Duvall's face. And they're just running at full tilt. I would maybe save that shot just because it's funny. It's funny to see. And this is before I think Cruz really honed his run. So he actually kind of like gets rolling a little funnily.
That's right. Yeah, he hadn't quite perfect.
Yeah, he's kind of like goofy. And you're like, what the hell? What's wrong with Cruz? He's not doing his trademark Ethan Hunt run. But it's a really funny shot, and they're like, their mouths are like wide open. They're just like laughing. I feel like it probably wasn't even scripted. They were probably just goofing off, and they're like, "Hey, we can actually use this in this movie."
Yeah, they were told that there's a couple of rippers down in the waiting.
That whole stripper thing. Like, I don't know. That was.
Hey, speaking of Ethan Hunt, Robert Towne, who was the screenwriter of this, was also the screenwriter of Mission Impossible 2. Take that for what it was.
But explain a lot.
Featuring Tom Cruise on a motorcycle going through smoke.
Going through smoke. All right, guys, if you had a favorite scene from this movie or something you would say from this movie, let us know in the comments. Rob, I do want to ask you who had the worst or the best name? Cole Trickle, Russ Wheeler, or Rowdy Burns?
Okay. Honestly, does it not sound like those were all like names that you would expect it to be in like the Cars movies from Pixar?
They're I feel like they're amateurish, but what do I know, right?
Listen, I think the worst name is Cole Trickle.
Cole Trickle, yeah. I feel like that's definitely the worst. I kind of don't mind Rowdy Burns.
Yeah.
But it is kind of funny. So yeah.
Also, there's a really young John C. McGinley in this.
Yeah. I forgot who. I think Steve or one of the guys was saying, don't forget John C. McGinley. Like, everybody's in this. It's really funny to see Michael Rooker as not Yondu right now.
Well, it's weird to see Michael Rooker with hair.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. Frasier's like best part is the end credits. Frasier would save those. Like, how about the music? Did you like the music at all? I like the music when they were racing.
Well, so that was a Hans Zimmer score. Jeff Beck was also did the guitar work on the Zimmer score. So that was pretty cool. I guess it was okay. It was just so funny, right? Because we had Hans Zimmer who did with True Romance.
Yeah.
Last
you
year.
didn't have the oil drums in this one.
This was the first collaboration that Tony Scott had with Hans Zimmer. Was this movie actually? So I guess it's okay. Apparently, the end credit song was sung by the lead singer of Whitesnake. I can't remember his name, but again, unless you were like a hair metal dude, Whitesnake would be nothing to you. So
yeah. It's certainly no Take My Breath Away from
no,
definitely didn't. But the racing, it was very Top Gun-ish. That little kind of like the music they would play in the background of that was kind of fun. Lewis says that the ride had completely different footage, so I guess that's that. So we don't need to keep this canister can go in the fire.
Were you enraptured with them racing the wheelchairs in the hospital? Was that your favorite
the wheelchair scene was one of the better scenes, right? Like the wheelchair scene,
right.
I think the early race scene where they played I don't know, that song Give Me Some Lovin' or whatever, the montage where he's kind of like learning how to race and he like hits the pace car and then he's like kind of like goofing around and stuff. That was one of the better scenes of the movie. They needed more of that in this movie. It seems like Tom Cruise loves to play this kind of rookie that learns how to become a specialist in this field, right? But yeah, I don't know. Rob, what would you rate this? Would you never watch this again? Are you fine throwing this in the vault or throwing it in the fire?
Yeah.
Would you watch it again if it came up on streaming?
No.
Would you ever own it?
Nope.
Would you upgrade it to 4K?
Not a chance. No. No, not a chance. In fact, if I own this on any form media, which I don't, but if I did, and I was to have a garage sale and somebody would be like, "Ooh, I'll take this," I'd be like, "Oh, let me pay you for this because
you're going to unload it." So you'd remove this from your playlist, which you can't do digitally now. But you would purchase.
I'm so glad I didn't buy this.
Yeah, you would purchase from your collection.
Yeah, thankfully it was on Paramount Plus. I didn't have to spend any money on this because I would have definitely regretted my decision.
Yeah. I feel like I might watch it on streaming just because I'm such a Tom Cruise fan.
You are absolute maniac. What is wrong with you?
I feel like I'm okay with actually never seeing this again because there are so many other racing movies that just blow it out of the water. And if you're gonna watch a movie of this era, of this vintage, and you want to see young Cruise and a chunk of the same people working on it, you go watch Top Gun. You don't watch this.
Listen, in all honesty, though, John, like this is the whole thing about the movie, though, is that like, when I say that there's no plot, like what was the purpose? Like, are we supposed to like root for Tom Cruise versus Yondu?
Yes.
Like, you don't. Where's the conflict? He bumped me. It wasn't bumping. That's called a little rubbing. Like there was no. You don't feel for, and even when the accident happens, you're like, oh my god. You don't really care. Like you don't feel, like it just felt so. I don't know, and maybe I don't know why in the 90s I was like, I was hook, line, and sinker on this. I would love to know, like adults who saw it then, if they thought how we think now. If they were like, if a 46-year-old went and saw Days of Thunder in theater, if they walked out being like, what a piece of shit movie was this? And young people were like, this is great. Like I don't know why. Like. But
I think the general consensus was that this was a letdown. This movie was a letdown, and I guess it was a over bloated budget. Fraser suggests watching Risky Business. Yeah, I would probably watch Risky Business or The Color of Money, where Tom Cruise plays a rookie. Yeah, Rain Man. I think it was before this, right?
It was really funny. So that Tom Cruise had filmed Born on the 4th of July before this movie, right?
Yeah,
And while filming this, the Academy Awards were shown, and he lost the Best Actor award.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, Paramount reduced the budget even further. You lost. We're taking away $10 million from the budget.
You lost. Strike it off. Now we can't put Oscar award winning on the poster. Now that costs $10 million. Sorry, Tom. I actually vaguely remember Born on the 4th of July, watching it when I was a kid, and I remember it was a pretty good performance by Tom Cruise. I don't think I've ever seen it again. And even as a young child, he's not flying jets, I still appreciated it. So, Rob, do you think this should ever deserve a legacy sequel or follow up of some kind?
No.
Yeah.
Wash your mouth out with soap. No.
Yeah.
Never.
I think there's so many other things in line that I would rather see. Even if you're just going with racing or if you're just going with Tom Cruise, there's so many other things in line that you would rather see from either genre or person before this gets it. So I feel like no, take the legacy sequel off there. But you know what? I'm sure Tom Cruise
take my breath away.
Yeah. I'm sure Tom Cruise loves racing cars, so maybe we'll see something from him in the future. Do you recommend anything over this movie, Rob? I think we've talked already a little bit about it, but do you recommend people see Rush or
yeah? So Rush is the one with Chris Hemsworth, right? Is that that was the Niki Lauda movie, right? Like with Zemo, that was the one.
Yeah.
And it really happened back in the British whatever in the real
it takes place in like 60s or 70s or something like that.
That's a fantastic movie. The Ford versus Ferrari movie is awesome as well, right? I mean,
Christian Bale and Matt Damon.
You know what? I would probably even recommend Tucker, A Man in His Dream, over watching.
What about Talladega Nights?
It's been a really long time since I've watched Ricky Bobby or whatever his damn name was.
It's essentially a parody of this movie, right?
It is,
Hot Shots is a parody of Top Gun, and then they did Talladega Nights, which is a parody of Days of Thunder, I guess, in theory.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I can't recommend Driven. I saw it once. I thought it was absolutely absurd.
Me and my brother watched Driven so many times. You guys can look it up on YouTube. There's a scene where he drifts and picks up quarters on the track. And then there's another scene where they race Formula F1 cars on the streets
of Toronto.
Yeah, it's very Fast and the Furious style.
Right.
And it's pretty crazy. I watched those two scenes after I finished watching Days of Thunder, and I had a better time. Death Race. Enough. Lewis says Death Race. I don't know about the original Death Race, but they did one with Jason Statham later on, which was okay at best. It was a mediocre at best. And it had a sequel with Tyrese, I think, in it.
I can't think of any other real racing. I mean, I can't think of any other racing movies that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of new shows that feature Formula One and this kind of setting, which I forgot what that new show was. It's like a documentary kind of style show. I think it's called F1 something or whether.
Here's a question: would you recommend this or Speed Racer the movie?
Oh God, I watched some clips of Speed Racer, and I remember.
You've never seen the movie?
I saw it way back in the day. It was
directed by the Wachowskis.
Yeah, it was one of the first Blu-rays I purchased. But when you watch it again now, it looks like so much of it is on green screen.
Yeah.
That when you talk about technology not holding up, I feel like that movie is 100% gonna get trashed.
With Matthew Fox as Racer X.
Yeah. Lewis says Herbie. Would you watch Herbie with Lindsay Lohan or the original?
No, I go back to the Don Knotts stuff from like the 60s, man, and the 70s.
I got a soft spot for Lindsay Lohan, so I watched Lindsay Lohan again. Herbie.
No, not since she got me to drink Pilk. Will I ever watch her?
That was your fault. She was probably joking with you. Fraser says he'd rather watch Death Race than Days of Thunder. I'm with you. I assume you mean the original Death Race with Stallone. Is Stallone the original?
But no, it was no. I think the original was
and David Carradine. Is it Stallone? I think it's Stallone and David Carradine.
Oh, you might be. Yeah. You know what? Honestly, I would rather watch really good racing sequences from movies. Like even the Bourne movies, all those like wicked racing scenes.
Yeah. It's Italian Job with the minis.
Yeah, the Italian Job was great. Like I said, Ronin with De Niro was a fantastic racing stuff, right?
Even what about Jack Reacher with Tom Cruise and the Chevelle? That's a fun sequence.
Yeah, it's an okay one. Yeah.
I just love that car so much. I'm blinded by anything that happens in that scene.
Right. Would you rather watch Days of Thunder again or Fast 9?
I'll rewatch. I actually was okay with Fast 9. I haven't rewatched it since, but yeah.
They went to space, John. Come on, dude.
They went to space in a Fiero. It's a fantastic car. Okay, thank you everybody for hanging out with us for Days of Thunder. We're not super happy about that rewatch, so thanks if you joined us for it. If you didn't, then bonus to you. We just saved you a bunch of time. So hopefully you had some fun with that. Rob, what do we want to do next week? Do we want to keep? Do we want to give Tony Scott Tony Scott, one more shot. Are we down with that?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it.
All right. So
you have a couple that I left.
We got two choices up, so we're gonna let the chat decide the movie. How about that, Rob?
Sure.
First,
there's only
first
3
choice,
people in chat, so we'll see what happens.
So we'll see. First choice is Unstoppable, Denzel Washington, Chris Pine. About the train, like speed, like can't go under whatever miles per hour. No, I think they just can't stop the damn train. But it's a fantastic movie. It's available on Amazon Prime. I think you said, Rob, right?
No, Disney Plus.
Disney Plus. Yeah, so Disney Plus under your stars, I guess. Whatever. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely amazing. I remember I listened to a podcast where Quentin Tarantino was raving about that movie.
So wait, but a train that can't stop, and so that's why it's called Unstoppable.
Yeah, Unstoppable. Yeah. I wonder if they
played
Unstoppable.
Under Siege 2 Dark
Siege. All right, and the other choice is Man on Fire, starring Denzel Washington, Dakota Fanning. I don't think it's available on any streaming service right now, but I feel like you should all own it. It's essentially Punisher, the movie, but with Denzel Washington. Fantastic piece. I think it's probably my favorite Tony Scott movie. Yeah, I don't know. What would top this in my mind? I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what I would want to do, John, is I would want to, and maybe we can do this then for March, because I do want to watch Man on Fire.
Yeah.
And then juxtapose that with The Equalizer the next week with Denzel.
Okay, yeah. I would be interested to do Equalizer rewatch because I love Antoine Fuqua. I love Denzel Washington. And for some reason, the original time I watched it, it didn't hit for me. So I think I do have to give it a rewatch. I feel like since Lewis hasn't seen Man on Fire, we should do it. Lewis, are you willing to pick up Man on Fire?
Don't own it, can't stream it. That's what he just put in the chat.
Yeah. So you have to rent it.
But why don't we do that in March? Why don't we do Man on Fire one week and then do Equalizer the next? And so that way we can see like how they, because they are somewhat similar stories. Like there is some similarities between the two, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Lewis says he's not going to buy it. All right, Lewis. Well, I'll lend you my DVD copy or something. So we'll save that. Let's rewatch Unstoppable and wrap up Tony Scott for this month, and then we'll revisit Man on Fire and The Equalizer, which I think is a nice combo. Rob, my daughter's going crazy here. So we're going to be Unstoppable next week. Steve's talking about Nobody. That's not a Tony Scott movie, is it?
No, it's not. No, because Tony Scott died.
From the grave, he directed.
But I did watch Nobody like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, fantastic movie. Maybe there's a sequel coming eventually.
Maybe we'll see how Bob.
Eventually, maybe. All right, so we're gonna talk Unstoppable. So get your train tickets and join us.
Choo-choo.
Yeah, I know you all still got Disney Plus going right now. They didn't crack down on any password sharing.
All right, cool. So that's for next week. So for those who tuned in tonight, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for rewatching, or if you didn't, thanks for listening to us talk about Days of Thunder. Don't forget the Heroes World podcast is back this week. We have a review of Ant-Man and the Wasp 3, Quantum Mania. So keep your notifications locked and loaded, as that will be dropping in a couple of days. And then next week is Unstoppable on Disney Plus. Chris Pine, Denzel Washington, Tony Scott in a train full of explosives.
Explosives. Dennis Hopper.
It's going to make the train explode, John.
Dennis Hopper on the radio. Why are people? Oh, Gladiator. Okay, so that's a Tony Scott movie too, as well.
No,
Rob.
That's Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott. All right, so we switched. All right, sorry, we're not doing Ridley Scott yet. We're saving that for later.
Right. We'll go back and see his stuff.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, buddy.
Fantastic seeing you on the weekend, and always fun as always. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Go get your omnibuses. You guys still got to. There's still some copies of this left at the store.
Yeah, we sell all our omnibuses for U.S. cover price in Canadian. Some fantastic choices. My personal favorite is the new Daredevil one that we got reprinting. Frank Miller stuff. And then there also is a lot of modern stuff. A lot of people have been asking me for King in Black lately, so I got to get some more stock of that one. I guess Venom must be on like an uptick.
Well, yeah, there's the Spider-Man versus Venomnibus or whatever they're calling it, coming out in March. So
yeah, there's a bunch of Venom stuff people asking for. So thank you, everybody. We will see you guys on the next one. Thank you, Rob. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, buddy.